WBNE.
Hello and welcome to episode 158, all about the Silmarillion, chapter 18 of the Ruin of Beleriand and the Fall of Fingolfin, being the 158th part of That's What I'm Tolkien About. Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, just call me MC. I've been experiencing the world of J.R.R. Tolkien for the first time, and right now I am reading the Silmarillion, so you don't have to. Today I am joined by KaliCosplay of TikTok. Welcome!
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, MC.
I'm excited to have you on. A few of my recent guests, though I can't remember specifically who, but a few of them were like, you should check out KaliCosplay. They do a podcast with New Beta, and sure enough, you did. I was like, wait a minute, how did I miss this person? So I'm glad that so many people were like, you need to reach out and see if they'll come on. So
well, I'm glad you did. And yeah, so the podcast is brand new, so don't feel bad if it hasn't been on your radar yet. We just have 10 episodes out. But yeah, it's called Voices of Arda. And as you said, it's with New Better Do Better from TikTok.
Yes, wonderful former guest of this podcast. I've hit up, I think, everybody on the Tolkien Talk
You
side
really
of TikTok.
have. I looked at the list of your episodes and I was like, wow, this is my entire Twitter follow list. This is everybody's
exactly.
here. And I am honored to be among them. So thank you
I'm
again.
gonna run out of people very soon, so
Oh, I'm sure we can find some more people for you.
that's when I'll just loop back around to the beginning. So I've been doing pretty good, actually. I really wanted to try and get as many new people on without repeating guests, which I love when guests come on again, but I do like to get some new folks on. So I'm personally pretty proud of myself that I've made it pretty far into the Silmarillion. I think I've only had one or two people as Silmarillion guests who had been on before. So I'm glad that there are so many new people to connect with. And like, I feel just when I felt like, oh, I've totally exhausted all the possibilities of like nice, like cool Tolkien creators to collaborate with, and then more people just keep showing up and doing things.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, and from our community, I can think of a good handful of people that I can refer to you, so that should help
perfect.
Keep your Silmarillion readings going for a little while.
Yes. Although I did threaten on Twitter today that I was going to just drop the Silmarillion altogether and do an episode covering the 1970 original Lord of the Rings screenplay by, let me look it up, John Boorman, adapted Lord of the Rings in 1970, and it involves like Galadriel and Aragorn, I think, make out, or Gimli, or like, it's pretty wild. And I actually want to get some people together and do like maybe a reading of a couple different scenes. That would be
amazing.
Fun. So if I just stop the Silmarillion all of a sudden to do this completely.
Yeah. Do it for like a palate cleanser, and then keep going. Because it does, like, we're about halfway through at this point, and I'd like to say that it gets better.
That's the thing. Everyone keeps telling me, they're like, oh, it gets better. And I'm like, I'm on page 150. Like, it should be better.
At what point am I going to feel happy about these stories? Never.
Like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, we're running out of time for it to get better. And also, I should say, we're also running out of time for me to do any sort of palate cleanser weeks. I did 1 week during Pride Month, but aside from that, I really have to stick to the schedule now, because currently the way my schedule is laid out, we will finish all of the chapters, the numbered chapters, and then the show comes out.
Okay, so
then I have to jump into which is ironic that I'm not going to read the Rings of Power section before the show comes out.
Oh, I was going to say, like, are you covering it right before or, like, during or at the beginning?
No, it's fine.
It'll be fine.
I procrastinated on starting the Silmarillion, so this is what I get. And also, you know what? No, in my defense, Amazon Prime took forever to release any kind of, premiere date. So, I had already planned out a lot of fun stuff, none of which I regret doing. I regret nothing. But I don't even think I'll be able to do 2-parter episodes anymore, which I'm kind of worried about this episode and the next chapter and maybe even the one after that, because they're all potential for 2-parter episodes. But
Definitely.
we don't have time. We have to read the Silmarillion and then we have to watch the show. Oh my God, I can't believe it's almost here. Okay, so much rambling.
It'll be great. We'll move along with it and it'll be great.
Kali, first tell me and the listeners about your introduction to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, or maybe it was through The Hobbit or the movies. How did you get introduced to Tolkien and what was your experience like with the Silmarillion?
So I started, I don't know where it came from. It was just on my bookshelf one day, the trilogy, and I picked it up. I was, I don't know, probably 10 or 11. I was very young, and I just read it. And I read the second book and the third book. And then I read them again and I read them again. And I read them so many times that the bindings of like the back cover are just like hopeless. I'm actually afraid that pages are going to start falling out of it soon. So yeah, I just couldn't put them down. I couldn't stop reading them. And then it was probably, I don't know, I was probably more like 15 or 16 when I picked up the Silmarillion and read it for the first time and absolutely hated it. And I went around telling everybody that it just read like the Bible or like Genesis from the Bible. And you've got son of, son of, son of, son of, son of, son of. And I was like, I'm never reading this book again. But then, I read the trilogy and then I just was always looking for Tolkien things to read, so I read the Silmarillion again. And then it made a little bit more sense. And then I read it a third time. And sucker for punishment over here. And that's when, I don't know, finally about the third or fourth time, it became it went from like my hated book to my comfort book somehow.
Wow.
Like, all these, like, and it still is. Like, I don't go anywhere, even for a night away, without my copy of the Silmarillion. Now, I don't read it cover to cover anymore. I tend to just read, sections of it that are feeling relevant to what I'm going through at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, or
you don't mean the chapter where Tolkien just describes a map?
The maps, the
6
maps
pages.
chapter.
You don't find that deeply comforting, and you don't connect to that material?
Not as much, no. So there is still a lot that is a slog. And even in this chapter, when they start just naming family trees and stuff, like, my brain just glazes, but that's okay. That's okay, because if you're someone who really wants to memorize all of that lineage, that's fine. You can do that. But if you're someone who wants to get the spirit of a story, you can just skim over those and get back to like the good parts. I think. I say that's okay. I'm sure there were people who will tell me that is not okay. But I say that's fine. I think you should do what you can to get the only way enjoyment I am, out of this book.
Mentally capable of reading it anymore.
Yeah, I was listening to old episodes and I'm just loving how much you hate the book, because that's definitely how most of us felt about it the first time. Yeah.
Like, I really do want to emphasize that, like, I came into this with a really open mind and was like, okay, yeah, this is a bit of a slog. It's a lot, but, I get it. And then the map chapter broke me. And then since then, I've just been like, you know what? No, I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to hide.
No, no. Yeah, we get it. It's fine. Even if you have the map with you and you're looking at it during the map chapter, it's just,
so impossible. Yeah. Impossible. Oh, which, by the way, I don't know. I made a TikTok about it, but I don't remember if I shared it on the podcast. But as I was packing up my stuff for a move, which, by the way, listeners, this is my first episode in my new apartment. Ooh, yay! OG listeners will remember a year ago when I moved, and my first episode that I recorded in that apartment, there was a leaking gas stove.
Oh my gosh.
And my roommate came in and was like, "Do you smell gas?" And I was like, "Maybe." So fun memories.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad you're out of there.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, what was the thing? Oh yeah, as I was packing up, I picked up, I have a like hardcover. It's technically an illustrated edition of the Silmarillion, but not in the way that the Harry Potter books have illustrated editions, where like the illustrations are like really part of the story and whatnot. It's more like it's more like a chapter and then like a page of an illustration from someone. So
Probably
it is really beautiful, but like it's not as cool as it sounds. Anyway, I was picking it up and felt something at the back of the book, and I open it up, and there's this giant map of Beleriand that you can take out of the book, and you know it unfolds, and like you can actually read it because like the print isn't tiny, and I'm like, seriously, I just discovered this now? Like this would have really come in handy a couple weeks ago, but no, the Tolkien gods just don't like me, I guess. I don't know. All right, so yes, enough of our fun chatter, even though I could probably do this for like another half hour. Let's dive into this hefty chapter, as the title, I think, gives away, of the ruin of Beleriand and the fall of Fingolfin.
No!
Just like a lot of spoilers in there, and I think the first 5 pages could just be the fall of Fingolfin, the first 4 pages or whatever it is, and then the rest of it could be the ruin of Beleriand. And I think you could even divide it up further into different chapters because so much happens in here. But
I feel like this could be a three-part
yes.
thing, which you guys will see as we move along through it. But
yes, it kicks off with describing the Morgoth situation, which is kind of funny to me, and it is a little bit crazy that everyone's just kind of like living their lives in Beleriand, right? And meanwhile there's this like 400-year-old siege going on in the north with this like Lord of Darkness, and they're all just like, yeah, we're just not gonna. It honestly, I imagine it feels very similar to living in current day United States.
Oh my!
You're just going about your life with this like foreboding sense of like impending doom hanging above you and touching every part of your life, and every now and then you have to be like, nope, I have to turn that part of my brain off and just keep moving on, you know, with my work day or whatever.
I would say, so I'm actually Canadian. And
you are?
Yeah, so I would say that it's more like us Canadians looking at you, the US, and you guys are like the North. You guys are like Angband, and we're looking at you and we're like, well, we're just going about our lives. Bad things are happening over there across the border. We should probably prepare for them. But that's
I don't think we're gonna go to war with Canada, but then again, stranger things have happened in this country in the last 2.5 years, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. So you never know. Let's not write it off.
So that's how I feel about it anyway.
Okay. So just know that the majority of the people of Americans, and also for any other non-American listeners out there, none of us are happy about this current situation, just in general. So don't think that a lot of us are complicit. and that like we chose this. None of it's good. Okay, anyway, so going back to this complete work of fiction that reminds me nothing of real life. So yeah, Fingolfin is kind of like, maybe we should do something. Like, maybe we should start preparing for a war, a war. Because, like, we've kind of been in this siege for hundreds of years. But the majority of the Noldor and everyone else are like, nah, man, life is good. Like, why would you mess with things when, for the most part, everything's peaceful? And so they just kind of, like, let it go. They just kind of like go on with their lives. It says, for the Noldor did not yet comprehend the fullness of the power of Morgoth, nor understand that their unaided war upon him was without final hope, whether they hasted or delayed. Mm-hmm. So whether or not they start, they're in for it and they don't even know it.
Pretty much. Yeah. A lot of hope there.
Yeah. It mentions that Morgoth, meanwhile, has been, the malice of his heart grew greater and his hatred of the Noldor more bitter. So he's just seething. He's just been sitting there seething for 400 years. Just
stewing up a little hate crime there is what he's doing, yeah.
So much so that he's like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to war. So he kind of plays it kind of says that he like came out in full force a little bit sooner than he should have, and that if he had fully waited for his forces to strengthen to their fullest potential, that he probably would have won everything. But he was so bitter and hateful of the Noldor that he was like, I'm tired of waiting. Let's go for it.
When I read this, the first thing that I thought was like, this is the big difference between the two big baddies that we talk about, between Morgoth and Sauron. Because, like, when I read that, the first thing that I yelled in my brain was like, Sauron would have waited, Sauron would have won, you know? I don't know if you had that thought at all.
No, but now that you say it, that definitely like checks out. That makes sense, because that's what we see Sauron doing in Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. And that's why like he waits until the ring has, gotten to Frodo to kind of like start putting things in action that and he very nearly almost won then. Mm-hmm. So
except by chance.
Definitely.
Yeah.
However, just like the Noldor didn't necessarily understand what Morgoth was capable of, Morgoth also didn't fully comprehend the strength of the elves. And it says, of men he took yet no account, which is hilarious. Also, same. So then winter comes and Morgoth comes out full force. He sends great rivers of flame down the place. So remember, listeners, Angband is at the very top. It's not on the map. It's north of the map. It's at the very top. And he sends these great rivers of flame down, and it burns everything. It burns the plain of Ardgallen, and it stops at, I think it's like a mountain range or a forest called Dorthonion. But I always look at it and I almost say, in my head, I read it as Dorth Onion.
And now I'm thinking of Darth Onion, and now I'm thinking of Star Wars. And okay, all right.
Yeah. But so it stops there, kind of just north of Doriath, and then I forget the name of it, but that like creepy no man's land that everyone's like, nah, we don't go there.
Nandarkotheb.
I love that. So this plain is called the Gasping Dust, and I love this sentence. Many charred bones had their roofless grave. And throughout I've pointed it out before, and will throughout the rest of this chapter too, Tolkien is particularly great at describing like destruction and hopelessness and darkness. And like that is such a vivid, like it's a beautiful sentence, but it's also extremely dark and terrible. That there are all these people who were killed. the charred bones, and then roofless grave. So they are going to lie there forever because none of their people are going to be able to come and, you know, find them and give them a burial. It's just going to be this plain of just bones everywhere.
Yeah, think like post Pompeii, post Vesuvius type of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I was, throughout all of this, I was kind of thinking of, like a volcanic eruption, Pompeii, and, exactly, yeah. And this battle is the fourth battle, Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of Sudden Flame.
I heard you love pronouncing things from the Silmarillion.
Yeah, I kind of just stopped caring.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm also like, why did we need to name it that? Just the Battle of Sudden Flame. There we go.
The battle? Yeah, why do you have to? What I like is when you listen to the audiobooks, they always overpronounce this. It's Dagor Bragollach. They really put that emphasis
Scottish,
on it. It really
honestly.
does. Like, yeah. Well, I think a lot of the language did come from like Welsh sort of origins. So I have noticed a lot of the names can have that kind of pronunciation spin on them. But yeah. Yeah, I like it. I just love hearing this in audiobooks because they so overpronounce it. It's so extra. So extra.
And then I usually, I give things just the worst American pronunciation ever. And then I live in Virginia, which I don't know if it's the South or the North, depending on who you ask. I mean, it's not the North. Depending on who you ask, Virginia is not a part of the South, and it is. Oh, but yeah. I definitely have some Southern drawl to my voice, and so sometimes I'm just like, Dagor Bragollach. And I'm like, Tolkien would just love that pronunciation.
Or you just let's just call it the Dagger Brag.
The Dagger Brag.
The Dagger Brag. I started nicknaming them.
Oh my gosh. Then comes Glaurung the Golden, father of dragons, in his full might. So, rewinding a bit to the end of the previous chapter, there's a paragraph I made fun of that was just the epitome, the son of blah, 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 the son of, and it mentions that one of these people is
Turin the Bane of Glaurung.
Yeah, Turin the Bane of Glaurung. That didn't stick out to me, but then when I was like, I don't know who Glaurung is, because I had forgotten, and I had to go back to another previous chapter. Glaurung, I think it was in the Return of the Noldor chapter, emerges as he's kind of like a baby dragon that Morgoth had created in Angband, and he gets too excited, I guess, to go see the world, and he reveals himself before he is fully grown, and so he gets defeated and goes back to Angband. So here he is again, reappearing in his full might. So there's a dragon. In his train were Balrogs, and behind them came the black armies of the orcs in multitudes, such as the Noldor had never before seen or imagined. So we got rivers of flame, we got a dragon, we got Balrogs, we got orcs. Nothing good is happening, to say the least.
No, and like you have to also appreciate the sheer territory that this is taking place over. Like, this isn't just a little corner. It's just like in the north, pretty much from east to the west, right? Within that mountain range. So, like, this is the scale of all this destruction cannot be expounded upon enough. Really, this is a bad time. This is a bad time.
Yes. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And this is the worst of times. Yes. Yeah, all of that stuff is going down. This ends the siege of Angband. Everyone, like the Noldor, the Sindar, everyone who survives this, who was in the north, scatters. And that's kind of also just the general theme of this chapter, is that everyone is separated. Everyone is either forced from their territory, or they have to go somewhere else and flee, or they have to stay there and fight, but they're brother left, so everyone is just separated and weakened. Some go to Doriath, where Thingol and Melian are. Some go to Nargothrond, that one of the Finns. I don't remember which one. Let's see. So this is like our first body count of significance. The sons of Finarfin, Angrod, and Agnor, I never pronounced his name correctly, were killed. RIP, rest in peace. But we never really knew much about them anyway. We never got too close of a look at them. They are the brothers of Galadriel and who's the other one? I think Finrod. No, Fingon. Again, one of the Finns. So
Finarfin is Galadriel's father, and Finrod is her brother.
Finrod. Okay. Finrod is okay, that's right. Bregalus dies, which I just think is funny because the first mention we get of someone named Bregalus is 2 pages previously. And I still think it sounds like a ship name.
Yeah, it does.
So Bregalus dies. However, he has a brother named Barahir. Barahir is now, I think, the leader of the House of Beor. Mm-hmm. And he goes to meet Finrod. Mm-hmm. He goes to meet Finrod, who is fighting off demons, whatever, near Nargothrond, helps them get out of a big mess where he likely would have died. Finrod swears an oath of friendship to Barahir and offers aid with whatever he wants, and he gives them a ring. I don't know if that ring has significance in the future, but there you have it. What's the deal with this ring? Why is it so important? Okay. Why are we dedicating 5 paragraphs to this ring? What is up with that?
It is a very important ring, and it features also in the trilogy, so in the movies.
Is it? Is it one of the elven rings?
It isn't. It isn't a ring of power. Oh, okay. It's the ring that Aragorn wears.
Oh.
So this is the beginning of the story of that ring, which predates the rings of power, like the elvish rings. So so he's wearing, Aragorn is wearing a ring, and it's got 2 heads of snakes on it, and an emerald.
Yeah.
So that's the ring. So this is a very important ring indeed.
Okay. Insane details like that tucked into all of this madness. Meanwhile, on the east side, so there was this huge plain where that was completely destroyed, and on the east of that is Hithlum, that Fingolfin and Fingon kind of have reign over together. Mm-hmm. And they have a battle, and it's not looking great. And then it mentions Hador, the golden-haired, dies, and I'm like, okay, that means nothing to me. He's a man, that's all I know. Yeah. And his son, Galdor the Tall, took lordship. Yeah, Hithlum remains unconquered, but it says Fingolfin was sundered from his kinsmen by a sea of foes. So even though they're still holding their own, again, everyone's been scattered and separated. Okay, and then on the... Oh, wait, no, when I said Hithlum was east, I meant it was on the west side.
Sorry,
Don't worry about directions. Okay, now going to the east, where the sons of Feanor have been, and the March of Maedhros and all of that jazz. They were also taken by assault. Celegorm and Curufin flee.
They totally just cheese it. They leave all their people there, and they just cheese it, because they're a bunch of cowards. They're a bunch of cowards, and we don't like them.
They go to Nargothrond, and it says, it would have been better, as was after seen, if they'd remained in the east among their own kin.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not good guys. You will get to enjoy them more in coming chapters, I'm sure.
Save their own necks at that moment, yeah. Maedhros. What a guy. It said he did deeds of surpassing valor, and the orcs fled before his face. For since his torment upon Thangorodrim, his spirit burned like a white fire within, and he was as one that returns from the dead. Dang.
Yeah. I mean, if I had spent, 30 years chained
Yeah,
to...
I forget. He was there for a while, and he was, chained. Yeah, for a reminder for everyone, he's chained by one hand to a mountain, and then either Finrod or Fingon, again, I don't remember which, one of them comes to save him, and then an eagle comes, and his hand gets chopped off.
Yeah. I mean, they had to, but yes. I would probably be full of fire at that point also.
Yeah. Again, that was also 400 years ago, so you've had time to think about it, you know?
Nurse that hand and get back to it. Well, the not hand, I guess, as it were. Have you noticed that there's a big theme of people losing limbs? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that happens a lot.
So he is still fighting over in the east, and he holds his fortress, and he is able to close the pass of Aglon so that the orcs cannot enter Beleriand, but that doesn't happen for long, and
Glaudon comes back.
Does he? Oh, he does. Oh my gosh, I missed that. For Glaurung came thither and passed through Magor's Gap and destroyed all the land between the arms of Gelion, which is the river. So yikes. Magros did his best.
But a dragon.
But a dragon happened.
Fire drake. Yeah.
This is now the war spreading in this fire and terror, it says, spreading into East Beleriand. Caranthir takes his people and joins Amrod and Amros, and they kind of relocate and flee to a different area. Retreat, that's the word I'm looking for. They kind of retreat to a different area where they meet the aid of the green elves, and they are able to keep the orcs from going further east into Osiriand. All of this, listeners, by the way, we're only on like page 3 of the chapter.
We're getting there. We're moving along. Bear with us.
All of this destruction and chaos is happening, and Fingolfin is looking around, and he's like, well, this is it. It says, then Fingolfin beheld, as it seemed to him, the utter ruin of the Noldor, and the defeat beyond redress of all their houses. And filled with wrath and despair, he mounted upon Rokalar, his great horse, and rode forth alone, and none might restrain him. It's been a while. It's been a minute since we had a good horse moment. So we get another mighty horse here.
I love that Rokalar gets his own story in the appendices, by the way.
You're kidding.
He gets his own story where they talk about how after the next events happen, he, outran a bunch of the wolves of Angband, and then gets home to Hiflum and dies of a broken heart. But it is...
Oh my god!
But it is written. It is written. Rokalar has his own
that
story.
Doesn't surprise me that Tolkien would be like, I gotta let the people know what happened to the horse.
The horse has to have a story.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not every horse can have a Bill the Pony moment, right? Where, they escape their terrible past and then Sam comes up and saves you. Yeah.
No, war horses don't have it that good.
Oh gosh. So Fingolfin goes and charges towards Angband, and he challenges Morgoth to come forth to fight him mano a mano.
In the most epic way.
And Morgoth came, is what it says.
Reluctantly.
I also think that's possibly the shortest sentence Tolkien has ever written. So epic. I think it's funny. It mentions that he's not underestimating Fingolfin, and he fears the Valar still and is wondering whether Fingolfin is being aided by the Valar. And of course, he's seen the light of Valinor, so probably he has some of those powers in him or whatever. So he's not exactly like running out like, yeah, I got this. He pretty much goes out to save face in front of the rest of his minions. He's like, well, I don't want them to think I'm a bad leader. Like, I guess I have to go out. We gotta have contrasting colors, of course. Morgoth comes forth clad in black armor And he stood before the king like a tower, iron-crowned, and his vast shield sable unblazoned, cast a shadow over him like a storm cloud. But Fingolfin gleamed beneath it as a star, for his mail was overlaid with silver, and his blue shield was set with crystals. And he drew his sword Ringel that glittered like ice. So again, we gotta have those contrasting.
Yeah, man, he showed up for battle totally iced out. He was
decked out, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking good. Gotta go out looking good at least. Before you get dressed every morning, just ask yourself, do I want paramedics rescuing me from a car crash potentially in this outfit? Like, would I be embarrassed?
Makes me think of grandma's advice, yeah.
Yeah, if this is like the outfit that I died in, like, would I be embarrassed? I say that I'm wearing it's technically like a Halloween shirt, but it has dancing skeletons on it.
That's excellent.
And I'm like, I don't know if I would or would not be embarrassed to die in this. Anyway, they duke it out. Fingolfin's doing pretty good. Morgoth has Grond, the hammer of the underworld. He's swinging it around, but Fingolfin is like leaping away, and every time he does that, the hammer like hits the ground and like cracks it open. It mentions specifically that he wounded Morgoth with 7 wounds, and 7 times Morgoth gave a cry of anguish. And I'm like, okay, that's just like extremely specific. I wonder if that will come back around. I don't know.
A cry of anguish whereat the hosts of Angband fell upon their faces in dismay. So they just like, every time he screamed, all of his like little peoples were just like, oh no, and like cowering on the ground and stuff.
But Fingolfin grows weary, and Morgoth eventually gets the upper hand and strikes him down. It says he set his foot upon his neck, and the weight of it was like a fallen hill. So I guess he's about to he's like crushing him to death. Yet with his last and desperate stroke, Fingolfin hewed the foot with Ringel, and the blood gushed forth black and smoking and filled the pits of Grond. Nice.
Yeah. Go Fingolfin.
Did he cut off his foot? Or did he just stab it?
Just like sliced it real good.
I thought he chopped it off.
That's a lot of foot though, so that's a lot of blood, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
But he forever limped on that foot afterwards, so that really hurt him.
He got a permanent ouchie. Thus died Fingolfin, High King of the Noldor, most proud and valiant of the elven kings of old. And I think this is really important to mention. It says the orcs made no boast of that duel at the gate, and neither do the elves sing of it. Mm-hmm. So this is a battle that, even though Morgoth technically won, they all kind of recognized that, like, it was a hard fight, and Morgoth could have lost. Fingolfin held his own for a while, and it wasn't exactly a swift battle. Even though Fingolfin was very valiant and mighty, of course he died, so the elves are going to be very upset about this battle as well.
Mm-hmm. And Fingolfin was much loved as well, right? He was the High King, so
yes,
they're very sad.
And he was also not Feanor, so...
He's also not Feanor, yes.
So if you're choosing between some brothers, and one of them is Feanor and one of them is not, I would choose the one that's not,
But it's so sad. It's like the one time he gets uppity, he dies. Like, immediately. Yeah. But, oh well.
It was about time. He had been around for too long anyway. Morgoth is about to destroy his body into pieces and throw it to the wolves.
Rude.
But Thorondor, the king of the eagles, comes swooping in and like attacks Morgoth's face. And so Morgoth's face is permanently scarred from this. He picks up Fingolfin and takes him to a mountain somewhere where Turgon comes and builds a grave for him. And I just think it's hilarious that, like, coming from Lord of the Rings, the eagles like barely get themselves involved with anything, but they're involving themselves a lot in this time, in this period. So it's just
yes
funny
and
to
no,
see.
Though, right? Because he could have shown up earlier. Like,
This
dude,
is true.
you could have stopped that from happening, but they don't. They don't like to intervene on that level. But at the end of it, he's like, okay, we're not gonna add insult to injury. We're just gonna stop that now. And
Yes.
yeah. But going back, if listeners heard us mention Grond, the hammer of the underworld, it is not the same Grond that we see in the trilogy movies, but they are named the same. So
they are
that
named
could
the
be
same.
confusing. Yeah.
You might remember it from the scene where they're going, Grond, Grond, Grond,
Yeah.
Grond.
That one, yeah. I needed the subtitles on for that scene, for sure.
Yeah, here it mentions, Morgoth went ever halt of 1 foot after that day, and the pain of his wounds could not be healed, and in his face was the scar that Thorondor made. So he's been permanently damaged from this battle. We will never forget it. So, of course, everyone's sad. Fingon is now king of the Noldor. He is the oldest son of Fingolfin. However, it says his young son, Eärenion, Gil-galad, who after was named Gil-galad, he sent to the Havens. What is that? He sent him back to Valinor? Is that what that means?
Yeah, well, he sent them there to be safe, essentially.
But how? I thought the whole thing is that they made this decision to leave and you can't get back.
I think I should have probably looked this up, but the Havens is where they sail from to get to. So, like, the Havens are kind of on the edge of this world that we know it. And then, like, at the end of the trilogy, they meet at the Grey Havens, and that's where they're taking the boats.
Oh, okay. Right. That makes sense. Meanwhile... this is when I was like, we could end the chapter here.
Yeah,
like,
so that like
great.
that was kind of like the first part.
The fall of Fingolfin.
Yeah.
Great. Back in Dorthonion or Dorthonion, the people of Barahir are still there, and they're like, nah, we're gonna stay and fight, and we're gonna do all we can. And they eventually flee into a forest that's very dark and creepy. And again, this is where Tolkien's like descriptive imagery just really shines. And I'm like, this is creepy and wonderful at the same time. So this is the forest under Nightshade. The trees that grew there after the burning were black and grim, and their roots were tangled, groping in the dark like claws. And those who strayed among them became lost and blind, and were strangled or pursued to madness by phantoms of terror. Yeah. Dang.
Tadnufuin is not a nice place. It's not a nice place.
So, these are like the burnt remains of the forest at the south of the plains that were destroyed by the fires. It mentions Barahir's wife, Imeldir the Man-Hearted?
Yeah, how do you like that?
What does that mean?
So rude, Tolkien. Like,
the
dude.
Man-Hearted? Does that just mean she's straight and likes men?
No, it means that
she's the heart of a man.
The heart of a man. So to him, that means courageous. So I think he says she would rather fight than flee.
Yeah, and I'm like, excuse you,
dude. Yeah,
she's a woman, which means that she also has that's also the heart of a woman. And I can point to several other female characters in this book that have that same mindset too.
He likes to do that, but like Galadriel's nickname is Nerdanel is Man Maiden because she participated in like all the feats of strength with all the other dudes. Like he doesn't have to do that to the female characters, but he does.
It's like, yeah, you're one of the guys. Yeah, and it's like, or I'm Galadriel.
Or I'm just Galadriel, and women can fight too. But anyway,
Yes, what's her name? Imeldir leads the women and children and leads them away into the mountains, and they keep pushing forward until they get into Brethil, which is a part of, I think it's a part of the Forest of Doriath, but it's not under the girdle of Melian, technically. I could be completely wrong about that, so don't quote me on it.
Yeah, it's just north. Yeah, north of Doriath, northwest of Doriath, and not within the girdle. So
they are taken to safety. It says among them were Rian,
Yeah.
Rian, okay, there we go. Rian, daughter of Beleriand, and Morwen, who was named Elithwin. That is Elfsheen.
Yep.
Just Morwen. Great. And I believe Morwen is the mother of Beren? One of these women... No, because Baron's already been... No, wait, hang on. It's okay, I'm pulling up my family tree.
I think Morwen Elethwin was the mother of Turin Turambar.
Oh, okay. I knew one of them was the mother of someone important. Morwen is the mother of Turin. Okay, but we don't know his significance yet. I just know that he eventually becomes significant because he has a chapter named after him.
Aha.
Most of them eventually make it to safety. On the other side, the people, the men who are left behind, it was Barahir and 12 others. Beren, his son, Baragund and Belagund, his nephews, sons of Bregalos, and then 9 of his servants, and he names them, and I don't care. And they become outlaws without hope, it says. A desperate band that could not escape and would not yield, for their dwellings were destroyed, and their wives and children captured, slain, or fled. Dun, dun, dun. So they're just kind of like, yeah, I guess we'll just... be outlaws.
Yeah.
Which I associate with like westerns, you know, like a cowboy or something, you know, an outlaw. And so now I'm just picturing them with like cowboy hats and like old-timey like saloon guns and stuff, and
I pictured more like Robin Hood. So a bunch of like...
Oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's true.
A bunch of guys
that's
just like
true.
prancing about the forest, you know.
Okay, there we go. But probably not as much of a fun time.
Not so much prancing, no, probably not, no.
Also, I can't remember if it's already been mentioned in this chapter or if it'll come up later, but throughout all this, Morgoth is also capturing a lot of the Sindar and the Noldor and the men, and he'll like bring them back to... I might be getting ahead of myself, but I want to make sure I remember this detail.
Yeah.
Oh, it's later? Okay, yeah. Cool. Cool, great. So they're the outlaws.
The outlaws.
That's just what's happening. Remember that. Meanwhile, Sauron comes up against Orodreth. And is this when? I think this is when he takes Minas Tirith, not to be confused with Minas Tirith.
Yeah. We all, hate that he does that. Yeah.
Which is a tower, like on a little island in the middle of the river Sirion, I believe. That has been a stronghold against a watchtower to keep out to watch out for Morgoth. Again, the descriptive language here. Sauron was become now a sorcerer of dreadful power, master of shadows and of phantoms, foul in wisdom, cruel in strength, misshaping what he touched, twisting what he ruled, lord of werewolves, which I just think is funny. His dominion was torment. So he's climbing the Angband corporate ladder.
Yeah, that's a swipe left. That's a bad profile right there.
I'm going to put that in my profiles. I'm doing it as we speak.
My dominion is torment. Lady of werewolves.
I am the Lord of werewolves. He overtakes Orodreth, who flees to Nargothrond. Then Minas Tirith becomes a watchtower for Morgoth. The island it's on becomes the Isle of Werewolves, which I'm sure Tolkien didn't actually mean how we think werewolves, like, oh, people who change into wolves during the full moon and are cursed people. But, like...
He may or may not have been thinking that. I don't know.
Like, it's so random. And
it might come up in later chapters. I don't know.
Oh, my God. Okay, so... It's just like a random detail that maybe he did mention earlier that Morgoth has also been creating werewolves in Angband during the siege. And maybe he mentioned that or hinted at it and I didn't pick up on it, which happens a lot. They're getting closer to Doriath, and they surround it, essentially. That's right. Yeah, here it mentions, many of the Noldor and Sindar they took captive. also Morgoth is sending out his spies to lie and, again, sow those seeds of deceit. And I just think this is hilarious. It says, with cunning words sought to arouse fear and jealousy among the peoples, accusing their kings and chieftains of greed and of treachery one to another. And because of the curse of the kinslaying at Alqualande, these lies were often believed. So it's like, yeah, you know what? That does sound like the Noldor, whatever Morgoth is telling, the other people. Mm-hmm. They're like, you know what? I do believe it.
But then it gets really sad for the people who did escape.
Yeah, it gets really sad because they're kind of like within there. I don't know if it's like mind manipulation and everything. It says they're released, but their wills were chained to Morgoth and they strayed only to come back to him again. Therefore, if any of his captives escaped in truth and returned to their own people, they had little welcome and wandered alone, outlawed and desperate.
That was some evil deeds there. Yeah, that and I think personally, this is my headcanon, is that move is very smart, and I think that Lieutenant Sauron put that idea in his head. I don't think that was Morgoth's idea, personally.
Morgoth, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was...
Morgoth is more the brawn...
Yeah, let's
the
go!
And Sauron's the brains of the operation,
yes,
maybe.
Absolutely, yes. That's what I think, anyway.
Meanwhile, Morgoth, at first he feigns pity towards the men, and is like... Oh, but if you if you let me be your leader, it'll be great.
Hey.
But the men are like, no, we're not idiots. Like, we can see what you're doing. Morgoth hates them.
Yep.
And he sent his messengers over the mountains. Now come the capital S swarthy men, which I don't know how to interpret these men, because when someone uses the word swarthy, I guess I picture a pirate or like a lumberjack or something, like someone who's strong and big, but also maybe like handsome. I don't know. And capable. But okay, anyway, so the men come over, these other men come over into Beleriand. They were short and broad, long and strong in the arm. Their skins were swart or sallow. And so I did look this up, except I forgot to keep it up because I was like, okay, wait, I want to make sure I'm imagining the exact thing that he is describing.
Yes.
So I looked up swart and it said being swarthy. And I was like,
yes.
That's not helpful.
No, I know.
Oh, okay. Here. So this is where I've learned that swarthy just means dark-skinned.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm imagining a pirate.
I mean, it's fair that they're probably also dark-skinned because they spend a lot of time.
They're tanned in the sun.
Tanned, yeah.
Swarthy.
So so he's talking about dark-skinned people.
Yes, and then he also says sallow, which is a very sickly word.
Sallow is old for also dark skin.
Yes.
Yeah.
According to Google, of an unhealthy yellow or pale brown color. It just sounds like a pirate word to me. I don't know why. Okay, I'm gonna have to revisit that.
A pirate word, yeah.
It sounds piratey. These men come over, and for the most part, people are like, I don't know about this. But Maedhros, being a kind of stand-up guy, is like, no, let's be friends. So he makes an alliance with them. In particular, their chieftains, Bor and Ulfang. And this was all as Morgoth intended. This is as he designed, because they are all supposedly under the word of Morgoth to come over here and kind of, I guess, distract the other men or the elves or something. But I'm kind of confused because it does say some were already secretly under the dominion of Morgoth and came at his call, but not all, for the rumor of Beleriand went now far and wide, and the wandering feet of men were ever set westward in those days. So some of them are under the the command of Morgoth, and some of them are just like, wow, how did I end up here? What a crazy land.
What an opportunity. Hey, let's go. Adventure.
The Edain, who are the 3 families of men that are like close friendship and alliances with the elves and the Noldor. The Edain and the Easterlings is now what these other men are being called, do not like each other. So I guess this is, our first introduction. We have mention of Easterlings in Lord of the Rings too, who are the men villains, the men under the command of Sauron, and fighting for his army, and have iffy stereotypes and caricatures and descriptions of them. Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yes.
But it's here and we can't ignore it.
Yes.
So I won't pretend to know the mind of Tolkien as he in the time that he was writing it, but I will say that a lot of people have really clung to these descriptions of the evil people being also happening to be dark-skinned, and have unfortunately used that in their spicier rhetoric for gatekeeping Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
But I won't attempt to provide any kind of explanation or cover up there. I mean, it's written and that's what it is.
Yeah.
But using what he wrote then to justify now, having what did you say? Not so questionable or not so unfortunate, stereotypes. Yeah. So I just, that's all I can say is that just because things were written this way then does not mean that we have to accept them now.
Yay. Yes. I know. Yeah. I'm with you there that's kind of why I'm like, this is all very iffy because I've wasted a lot of my time and energy with terrible people on the internet about, certain ways that Tolkien has written things and whatnot. And same as what you said, where like, I can't dive into his mind and understand like why he wrote it this way or what he intended or all of that.
Or if he would have changed it or what, right? Yeah.
I think it's promising that, and it's so hard because I don't want to be like, oh, Tolkien was like an overtly like racist, sexist, terrible man. But at the same time, I'm never going to be like, yeah, what a woke king Tolkien was. Like,
no, and it's okay. I think that's great. And it doesn't make you any less of a fan if you're critical of certain things.
Oh, I'm critical of everything. But I think it's promising of Tolkien's character that he later recognized his stereotyping of dwarves with Jewish people, and later on tried to alleviate some of that and recognize and apologize and fix it, but it was like kind of too little too late. But I think it's at least promising that like he recognized that of his own writing, even in just that like small facet. I don't know if he would have recognized that if it hadn't been for the atrocity of World War II, like was it only like shoved in his face because of the events of the world? And he was like, oh, maybe I didn't do a good thing there with the dwarves in The Hobbit. Maybe that wasn't my best moment. But I think it's, at least nice that for at least one thing, he did take some moments of self-reflection.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All that fun stuff. Let's move onward. Always important to recognize and discuss and think critically when you're reading older works or you're reading books or watching movies or something, and maybe they have some iffy territories like that. It's always important to talk about it and discuss it, but you can always still enjoy it. I say enjoy it. This is like the most overwhelming, depressing, destructive chapter I've ever read. Yeah, that's right. The Edain and the Easterlings don't get along. I didn't take any notes on this part, and I didn't highlight anything in this chapter, so I don't remember what happened. All I wrote is that the people of Howleth rule. Oh, that's right. That's right. Because I think the orcs are starting to come towards the borders of Doriath, but the people of Howleth promised Thingol. He was like, yeah, you can stay there in my forest, even though it's not technically my forest. But you have to promise not to let the orcs in. And Howleth was like, do you think I was just going to like put up a sign and be like, Thingol this way? Like, did you think I was just going to let them in? And they do a really good job of defending the borders of Doriath and hold off the orcs. And they have a moment of peace and enough respite so that the kingdom of Nargothrond can muster its strength. Woo! Okay. In my notebook, I wrote, almost done! We're on like the sort of like third to last page here. Are you lightheaded? Because I am. So
take a deep breath. We're getting there.
And Huar. I feel like this chapter, the general arc of it is this disastrous, effect that Morgoth has on the Noldor and the land. But like, other than that, like, that's the only connecting thread. It just jumps all over the place.
It does,
between like, and now we're here, and now we're with the men, and now we're with the elves, and now we're back in the east.
It's just like detailing a lot of skirmishes here and there.
Yes, yeah. So 2 of the sons of Galdor. This is so ridiculous. It's like 4 sentences describing their family tree just to say that they went into battle. Like, that's all that you need to know, is that they went to battle. I don't even remember, but like, they went out to battle. And in leading up to that point, Tolkien is like, they are from the 2 houses of the Edain that were joined when Galdor and Glorithel, the children of Hador Goldenhead, were wedded to Harith and Haldir, the children of Halmir, lord of the Haladin. And so it was that the sons of Galdor were blah, blah. And I'm like...
This is where younger me was like, is this the Bible? What the heck am I reading? Like, why are we doing this?
The point of this, I think it's just to say that Hurin and Huar are the result of the joining of the houses of the Haladin and one of the other ones. I don't remember which one. They go off to a battle, and I think it also mentions that Huar is like 13 years old, but like he's still off to battle.
Yeah.
And they would have been slain or taken, but for the power of Ulmo that was still strong in Sirion. A mist arose from the river and hid them from their enemies, and they escaped over the Brith, So they escaped because Ulmo stepped in. I guess Ulmo's the only Valar watching over, being like, maybe I'll step in every now and then and try and help out.
Yeah, he's the only one who ever intervenes for like good reason.
Yeah. And don't you worry, y'all. We'll touch on what the Valar have to say about all of this in a minute. Thorondor, the eagle, has been watching all of this happen, and so he sends 2 eagles down to pick up Huar and Hurin, and they are taken to Gondolin. And I was like, uh-oh, isn't that like kind of a no-no? Like,
yeah, definitely.
But Turgon is actually pretty excited to see them because conveniently Ulmo had been sending him dreams warning him of woe to come and counseling him to deal kindly with the sons of the house of Hador, from whom help should come to him at need. So he welcomes them in, befriends them, gives them a place to stay and rest up, because they are children. It's not like they're 13 years old in like elvish years.
No,
they're like
just 13, yeah.
They're children.
They are children. They're straight up children. Yeah.
Yeah, so Turgon takes them in and keeps them. It mentions that he keeps them in Gondolin out of love and not just out of this crazy law that he has that you either stay in Gondolin or you are killed.
Yeah.
Eventually, though, they're like, hey, we can't stay here forever because our lives are kind of short. And I miss my family. I miss my friends. We got to go back to our people. Please, can we go? And they make the pretty fair argument that they don't know the way into Gondolin because the eagles just dropped them off.
That's right.
Turgon is like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. That checks out. However, Maeglin, or Maeglin, who we had, was that even the previous chapter? Oh my god, so much has happened. Where was that? Maybe that was 2 chapters ago. I think that was 2 chapters ago. Oh my god. Anyway. It says, he was not grieved at all with their going.
What a jerk.
And he goes over to them and he's like, just so you know, Turgon, he's shown you a lot of mercy and grace because his law about not leaving used to be pretty harsh.
Yeah.
AKA, my father got thrown off a cliff rather than stay in Gondolin or leave. So y'all should be pretty thankful that he's just letting you go scot-free. So they swear they swear to never reveal the counsels of Turgon and to keep secret all they had seen in his realm.
And they really do for all their lives. They never break that oath.
Yes.
Not even to their wife.
Yeah, they eventually reunite with their people and they're like, yo, what happened? Like, there's no way y'all were just out there in that, like, forest or whatever for, like, you were gone a full year. Like, what happened? And they were like, trust us. Like, don't ask, don't tell, you know? Yeah. Like, just let's leave it alone.
Just be happy we're back. And then they were.
Yeah. It was like, no further questions. Turgon has been, obviously, he's aware of everything that's happening. I'm sure when Huar and Hurin came to stay with them, they told him more about what was going on since they pretty much all just like stay in Gondolin. He is like, okay, this is really not good for us. Let's see what we can do about that. So he sends some of the Gondolinthrun, the people, some of his like soldiers
of
Gondolin, some of his soldiers on like a little secret mission to the Isle of Balar, and they are building ships and they're intending to go into the west to get the aid of the Valar. However, they don't make it and they also never come back. So
yeah,
whoops.
Yeah,
it says, the seas were wild and wide, and shadow and enchantment lay upon them, and Valinor was hidden. Therefore none of the messengers of Turgon came into the west, and many were lost, and few returned. So,
yeah, Turgon's errand was not wholly successful.
That was not successful.
No.
And I'm still just like, the audacity of the Valar to... They summoned, like, I get their intentions originally that they were like, hey, elves, come over to where we are and we'll keep you safe from Morgoth. But also, that's a lot to ask of, as we saw from the elves' many travels and trials and tribulations getting to Valinor. Not all of the elves can go there. And then also you have the dwarves, you have the men, and these are... the children of Iluvatar. Technically, the dwarves are the children of Aule.
The adopted children of Iluvatar.
Yes, the adopted children of Iluvatar. The Valar are just, like, letting them, be, figure it out on their own. Mm-hmm. And just, like, whatever. Like, I just want to know, what the heck are they doing? They're doing nothing. And I'm just like, the audacity of the Valar to sit over there, keep their land hidden, keep themselves safe and neat and tidy over there. And their estranged brother is causing all of this. And they're just doing nothing about it, even though they're the ones that have the most power to do anything. But except for Olmo. Olmo is doing the bare minimum. But he is doing something.
But I don't know, maybe it's just that they spent so long fighting Morgoth that now they're just utterly exhausted from, like, the whole Enulindale, like, the whole singing, and they would build something and he would take it down, and they would build it and he would smash their sandcastle. Like, maybe they're just tired of all that and they're like, we don't want to...
I'm gonna call BS on that because a literal 13-year-old, just a 13 15-year-old mortal went to go fight in this
guys,
war.
Come on. You guys can do better.
Like, come on, Monway. Like, what are we doing over there?
Not being merciful. That's what.
Oh my gosh. So, and like, I also understand that when the Noldor were leaving, there was that Doom of Mandos who told them, he was like, bad stuff is going to happen. This is not a good idea. Last chance to turn around and you know, save yourselves. So like, even they were warned, but like the Valar doing nada, absolutely nothing to help the situation here.
We have a lot of discussions about that. Yeah, we do. And no answers. Discussions with no answers is what happens when we talk about why the Valar didn't, or why Eru didn't help more.
Yeah.
But,
I guess that's, I'm now remembering a couple guests, I don't remember specifically who brought up, maybe this was also Tolkien's self-insert reasoning for like his real life experiences of like, he's in World War I and he believes in God, but he's still witnessing all of these atrocities and God is doing nothing to stop it. So maybe that's all, you know, maybe that's also kind of a way of explaining it, that like there are a lot of things that happen in the world that people's belief systems and higher powers don't step in to do anything about. And I guess you can say that's what's happening here. Okay, we're on the last page.
Woo!
Meanwhile, Morgoth is curious about Turgon and Finrod.
Finrod, Felagund, yeah.
Yeah, it's Finrod. There we go.
Yeah.
It always just refers to him like it'll actually no, it doesn't always. It'll flip back and forth between referring to him as Felagund, and so I can't remember which one is which one that goes with. Okay, Finrod. Anyway,
Finrod, Felagund.
Morgoth kind of knows that Finrod and Turgon are out there doing something, but he doesn't know exactly what they're doing. It says, for they had vanished out of knowledge, and yet were not dead, and he feared what they might yet accomplish against him. And he knows of the existence of Nargothrond, but he doesn't exactly know anything else about it. And he doesn't know anything about Gondolin. He's just kind of worried about these two.
Yeah, so he is not sitting in wait. So it happens again, where everybody is just chilling, and they're like, oh, there's peace, we can chill. But not Morgoth, he doesn't chill. He doesn't sit and enjoy the peace. He just keeps working.
Yes, yeah. It also kind of like summarizes these skirmishes by saying that like even though there is a great loss among the Noldor, even though like Fingolfin is dead, two of the sons of Finarfin are dead, so he's killed off some important people. However, aside from Dorthonion and the Pass of Sirion, the Eldar were pretty much able to somewhat regain control over what they had lost. But yeah, the forges of Angband were full of labor. What else happens? Eventually, I think over by the mountains or whatever, Fingon is outnumbered and is having his own battle, but he's joined by the ships of Círdan, who come in and help the elves of the Falas came upon the host of Morgoth from the west, and the orcs broke and fled, and the Eldar had the victory. Let's see what else. Stuff about Hurin is a leader, whatever. Eventually whatever, I'm just skimming over all the people's names and mothers and sons of and daughter of. However, this is how the chapter ends, okay? And it's literally, it feels to me like, so the Silmarillion we know was edited and pieced together by Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R.'s son. This part feels to me like Christopher's reading all these different chapters and notes, and he's like, wait a minute, there's no piece connecting this chapter to we have to make one last connecting point. So it says, in that time also the outlaws of Dorthonion were destroyed, as is told hereafter, and Beren son of Barahir alone escaping came hardly into Doriath. And that just feels like the most, oh, by the way, the outlaws, they were destroyed, but Beren was the only one that survived. And now we'll talk about Beleriand, like flip the page. But it just felt like kind of like an afterthought of like, by the way, the outlaws were destroyed. The end for them.
Yeah.
But Beren, what about him?
Like, he took the time to describe them. He even named Gordelim the Unhappy, and then he's just like, and then they died.
And also they were destroyed.
Yeah. We mentioned them for a paragraph, and now they're gone.
And now they're gone. That's it. The end.
Woo!
Wow. Okay. What I feel like I probably missed a lot. Was there anything that you wanted to point out?
I don't think so. I really think we did a very, very thorough review of that chapter. How do you feel?
I was exhausted reading it. Like it at first, like as I was reading the first half of the chapter, I was like, oh, this is like getting really cool. It's getting really exciting. I'm very intrigued. I'm drawn into the story. I'm following everything. And then like it just kept going and there was just more and there's still more happening and more. And like I kept turning the page and there was a lot. And it wasn't like he spent a paragraph, you know, waxing poetic about a blade of grass like he'll sometimes do. Like every part of the page was taken up by something eventful.
Yes. And it wasn't like one, one story either, right? Like you said, it's just, it's hard to follow and to stay sort of engaged when each paragraph is completely switching characters, and then it's just like a line, a list of names, and then they all die, and then you're like, well, I learned all those names.
And also they were destroyed. Yeah. Well, thank you, listener, for sticking in. Thank you, Kali, for sticking in and discussing it. Oh my gosh. Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, so mostly really just on TikTok. I'm Kali __cosplay. Kali is spelled Kali. But like I also mentioned, we have our Voices of Out of the podcast, which is available on YouTube because I do it in my Lord of the Rings cosplay stuff. But also on Spotify and where all the podcasts are can be found. And that is me.
Yeah, awesome. And also shout out to your Yavanna cosplay that I saw recently. Very cool. And it was also just exciting for me from a very selfish standpoint where I was like, oh my God, I know who that is.
Yay!
I recognize that character. I know that one.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That was fun.
I'm planning on cosplaying my way through all the Valars, so hopefully you'll recognize.
Oh my gosh,
them as they come up. Yeah,
you have your work set out for you.
It's so much fun, though. I love it.
Yeah, that's a challenge, but that's also such a fun creative challenge too. Because we also don't have any. It's not like with the movies, or anything where we have like visualizations of what the Valar are or what they look like, aside from maybe like a handful of like quote unquote official illustrations from people. So like cosplaying as the Valar is so it's like stretching your creative brain. Yeah. Because you get to imagine, like that's what I'm terrible at, is like coming up with like every character I read, I'm like, they just have a head and
you just
maybe there's hair on it.
Stick figures running around. Yeah.
That's What I'm Talking About is a proud member of WBNE. If you want to learn more about the network, you can go to WBNE.org. The cover art is by Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at Vaishon Designs. You can get merch for That's What I'm Talking About by going to tpublic.com/user/talkingaboutpod. You can follow the podcast on social media at talkingaboutpod, and you can follow me on Twitter at MCWhatsup and on Instagram at MCTurndownforWhat. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/talkingaboutpod. There are different level tiers depending on whatever kind of support you want to contribute. And let me be clear, literally any kind of support I am blown away by. But in particular, I am blown away by our newest sponsor of the podcast, Dave and/or David. I am very sorry. Please let me know which you prefer to go by. But according to your information on Patreon, it's either David or Dave. Either way, I can pronounce those. So we're doing great so far. Anyway, thank you so much for deciding to become a patron and showing your support. I always appreciate it when people continue to find the podcast and continue to want to show that they like what I'm doing. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Do you have any parting words for the audience?
Nothing. I am just feeling quite also overwhelmed by that chapter. It was good stories though. And just thank you so much for having me on, and look forward to following you as you continue on this journey. It's really cool what you're doing, making like the Silmarillion sort of more accessible to people. It's a lot of fun.
And that's what I'm talking about.